Hi, this is Mike Peterson from Challenge Island, Oakland County East, back with our Steamtastic Friday. Today we're starting a new series at Challenge Island. We're in about the Halloween time this time of year in the United States, so I thought it'd be fun to talk about the steam behind candy and where it really comes from. So candy has some pretty amazing work that goes into it, including a lot of science. So we'll touch on that part first today. So first, when we talk about the science of candy, we can't do that without talking about the science of sugar and where it comes from, because all candy has some kind of sugar in it. So sugar comes from two different kinds of plants for the most part. It comes from sugar beets, which grow under the ground, or sugar cane, which grows as big long shoots above the ground, a little bit like bamboo. So sugar beets grow in colder parts of the world. For example, Russia, France, and the United States tend to produce the most sugar beets in the world. And cane sugar can come from China, India, and some of the warmer places like that. So when we get that sugar out, the main thing we need out of it is a fancy chemical that is called sucrose. So this is the kind of sugar that you find in there. So here's how you make sucrose. So you put together carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So this is the chemical formula for sucrose. So we need 12 atoms of carbon, 22 atoms of hydrogen, and 11 atoms of oxygen. And when the scientists draw it up, it kind of comes out in a shape kind of like this. In real life, it's much, much smaller than that, but here's generally what it looks like. So if you would count up my red circles and my blue circles and my white circles for hydrogens, that would show you how that's shaped. Now, when we make candy, the thing we need to do is we need to cook the sucrose, and we actually need to break it apart into two smaller kinds of sugars. So those are called glucose and fructose. So when we break those apart, and then depending on how those come back together again, that makes all the different kinds of candy we can come up with. So let's look at some examples of that. All right, so here's the basic kinds of candy we get out of that. So when we take those two parts apart, they want to come back together again. So they'd like to become crystals again. So depending on the temperature we use and how long we cook it at and how much sugar we have mixed in with the water and the other ingredients, sometimes they will come back together and make those crystals again. So if we have those crystals, we can make things like rock candy, we can make geode candy. Fudge is actually based off of crystallized sugar. And this really cool candy called Kendall Mint Cake, which is really delicious. So look that up if you haven't tried that before. Now, if we can keep those crystals apart, again, depending how we cook it, then we can get other kinds of candy like caramel. So basic caramel comes out when we cook that and leave it apart like that. But then we can also turn that into lollipops. We can turn it into brittle and toffee, and we can also turn it into marshmallows. So by taking that basic bit of science, taking that sugar and that sucrose, breaking it apart, and being careful how we cook it to put it together again, we can get some really fun kinds of candy out there. So I'd encourage you to maybe try making a couple of those at home. There's some fun recipes on the internet that can show you some great ways to do that. All right, with that, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.